Pawn to d4. Knight to f6. Pawn to c4. Pawn to g6. We'll see a Grunfeld or a King's Indian. Pawn to f3. Looks like an accelerated Sämisch. Bishop to g7. Pawn to e4. Pawn to d6, increasing the control of the e5 and c5 squares, also opening a window for the light-squared bishop. Knight to c3. King to g8. Knight to e2. Pawn to a6, a flexible move that prepares the queenside expansion. Bishop to e3, preparing a setup similar to the Yugoslav attack, with a queen-bishop battery, long castle and h4, h5. Knight to d7. Queen to d2, fish likes a4 to prevent black's queenside expansion. Pawn to b5, a great move, a pawn's sacrifice to open lines in the queenside. A similar concept arises in the Benko gambit. White to play, what to move? If pawn to b5. And black has compensation for the pawns. Pawn to h4, a great move, was played in the game. White follows Fischer advice against the dragon. h4, h5, sack, mate. Black to play, what to move? If pawn to c4, a mistake. Pawn to h5, was played in the game. Black doesn't allow the opening of the h-file. King to c1. Black to play, what to move? If pawn to c4, a blunder. You can't take the free pawn this time. Knight to b6, white is winning. Pawn to e5, was played in the game. It is necessary to stop the advance of the e-pawn. Pawn to d5. Black to play, what to move? If pawn to c4, always grab the free pawn. Knight to b6, a great move, was played in the game, and we reach a new position. There are no games from here in the Lichess Masters database. White to play, what to move? If knight to g3, a mistake. Bishop to c5, black is winning. Bishop to b6, was played in the game. White gets rid of the annoying knight, but loses his good bishop. Pawn to b6. Pawn to b5. Pawn to b5. King to b1. Pawn to b4. Knight to b5. Knight to d5, a brilliant move, a long-term sacrifice to open lines. Black shakes the center and activates his light squares dragon. White to play. What to move? If queen to d5 a mistake. King to e1 black is winning. Pawn to d5 was played in the game. Bishop to f5. King to a1. Rook to a4, protecting b4 and preparing to double on the a file. Knight to c1. Queen to d7. Bishop to c4. Rook to c8. White to play. What to move? If bishop to b3 a blunder. Bishop to a4 a mistake. And black has the bishop pair and a strong attack. Queen to e2 was played in the game. Pawn to e4, releasing the g7 dragon to spit fire on the long diagonal. White to play. What to move? If rook to e1. Bishop to b3 a obvious move was played in the game. Inaccuracy. Re1 was best. Pawn to f3. Pawn to f3. Rook to a5. White to play. What to move? If knight to d4 a great move. The only defense was to give back material to reduce black's potential energy. Rook to c5 with equality. Bishop to c4 a blunder was played in the game, moving back and forth b3 and c4. It leaves the protection of c2. Also, the bishop is not well placed in the open c file. The c4 bishop and b5 knight can be targets of attack. Bishop to c2 a brilliant move. The light square's dragon starts a maneuver to disorganize white's army. White to play. What to move? If queen to c2 a mistake. Queen to b5 a great move. And black is winning. Rook to d2 was played in the game. The rook defends the second rank, but now the first rank is more vulnerable. Bishop to a4. The bishop gracefully hitted the d1 rook and b5 knight. Knight to d4. Rook to c5. White to play. What to move? If pawn to b3 a mistake. Rook to c1 black is winning. Knight to c6 was played in the game. Bishop to c6. Knight to b3. Is the c5 rook in trouble? Rook to c4. Queen to c4. Bishop to b5. Queen to e4. Bishop to c4. The two dragons gives black full control of the board. Rook to c2. Pawn to b5. Knight to c1. Rook to e8. Queen to f4. Queen to a7, threatening checkmate on a2, white is forced to give back material. Rook to c4. Pawn to c4. Queen to c4. Pawn to b3, a great move, opening more lines for the attack. White to play. What to move? If queen to b3, a mistake. Rook to d1 was played in the game. Pawn to a2. Queen to a2. Queen to f2. Queen to b3. Rook to e3, and white resigns. He will eventually lose material in order to keep b2 protected. White to play. What to move? If queen to b8. If rook to d3. A great game by Rapport. A solid defense followed by a brilliant knight sacrifice that activated all black's pieces. The light dragon danced all over the board while the dark dragon kept shooting fire on the long diagonal.